Hello and welcome to Only Stupid Answers. My name is Sam Basher.
And I'm DJ Woldridge.
Ooh, baby boys and girls, good morning. Get that gunk out of your eyes because we're here talking about the rhythm section.
Yes.
Big shout out to Paramount. Thank you for inviting us out to a screening of this film. Now, if you're not familiar with the 2020 hit film starring Blake Lively, it is directed by Reed Morano. Quickie synopsis. A woman seeks revenge against those who orchestrated a plane crash that killed her family.
Yes.
Like we said, Blake Lively, Jude Law, Sterling K. Brown. There's a lot of big names attached to this film.
Yes, and Reed Morano, the director, is probably most famous for... she's mostly worked as a cinematographer. However, she did direct the first 3 episodes, I believe, of Handmaid's Tale, and she got an Emmy for the first episode of Handmaid's Tale.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this has a pretty solid track record, but this is very much in the same vein, I would say, as like an Atomic Blonde, where it's like, hey, let's make a James Bond movie, but with a lady. And then it seemed like, that's great. What if we made it painfully boring? What if we just made it really challenging to watch?
And a bit of a mess. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. So the trailers for this movie were coming out.
Yes.
We do a review show for our Patreon, Super TV Showdown, watching all the CW superhero shows and plus more.
Yes.
And so on the CW app, there's a fair amount of ads for this. And I seem to have forgotten it every single time it came. I was like, which one is this one?
Yeah.
And then like Blake Lively would be like saying something in a British accent. I'd be like, it's the rhythm section.
Yeah.
All right, I forgot. So my excitement for this movie wasn't at an all-time high, but hey, I love being surprised.
Yeah,
and I like a good action movie.
I was looking forward to it because, in a sense, because I know some Blake Lively movies have been kind of landing in January and February, but they tend to get positive reviews, and I'm always in the mood for like a good little spy thriller or whatever. And this let me down.
So this is actually based on a series of novels.
Yes.
The Stephanie Patrick novels.
Yeah, written by Mark Burnell, who also wrote the script for this as well.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah. So you're not going to go check out the other books now that you know?
No, it's no, but I won't. But so going into this film, I wasn't the most excited. But of course, with what we do, you always try to kind of throw that away.
Yes.
And give an honest review. So honestly, this movie is a bit of a mess. I think performance-wise, everyone brings their A game. You mentioned that we were talking about this off screen, so just kind of reiterating some stuff. I think Sterling K. Brown does a great job at being charming, just all on his own.
Yes.
And I think Blake Lively does a good job with what she is given in this movie, where we have to go on a pretty drastic journey from her, like we mentioned in the synopsis, she lost her family due to a plane crash, and after that, her life spirals to the point where she becomes a prostitute, and when she is approached by a journalist who has evidence that something may have happened on that plane that made it not an accident, she decides not to be a prostitute anymore, and for reasons she becomes trained into being a spy.
Yeah.
That's the gist. I think she does a good job showing that transformation, and when it comes to the hand-to-hand combat, I think she actually does a very good job. And there are 2 scenes in particular in this movie that are very well acted by everyone in it, but specifically Blake Lively, because she sells top to tail the emotional impact of what we're watching and the physical impact of her getting punched or stabbed or hit by cars. You know, like there's a lot happening to her in this movie, and of course Jude Law does a good job. He's more of like a mentor figure to her throughout the film, and I think, reiterating, he did a good job.
Yeah.
But
the good cast is good.
The good cast is good. Make that a sticker.
Yeah.
But it can't really help. That they can only do so much when it comes to the story.
Yeah.
And overall, this should be very boilerplate. Like if you think of wind the clock back to an early 2006 political thriller, Jason Bourne movies are really popular. So you're like, okay, well, what if we made a different Jason Bourne movie? That's what this is.
Yeah. It's like if you had a Jason Bourne movie, but it's like, what if you took about an hour before he actually did anything cool in Jason Bourne life?
Well, think about this.
What if he had to be retrained in his abilities?
Here's a spoiler for you for Jason Bourne. He doesn't have his memory.
Yeah.
So what if we...
But he still does cool things.
No, he does. But with that he doesn't have his memory and he has to relearn. What if we just kind of like did that and like made it as confusing as someone who doesn't have their memory? There's just stuff that happens in this movie where you're like, and they're like, no, don't think about it too much.
Yeah, and the problem is, I think some of that would work if it was a more zippy or fun James Bond or like Jason Bourne type movie. But the problem is, everything in this movie is taken so deathly seriously that it kind of saps all of the energy out of what's happening and makes stuff that the stuff that doesn't track even more noticeable because the movie takes everything so seriously, and it's tough because it feels like everybody's really trying their all, giving it their all. Blake Lively's, like we said, really trying to sell that action hero persona. And I will say that one element I liked about this movie is we do spend a lot of time with her training, but it is not necessarily a realistic time frame to get all the skills you would expect from a Jason Bourne or a James Bond. And the movie doesn't treat it that way because she's actually pretty bad at everything.
So it is slightly realistic,
more realistic, and that adds more tension to the few action scenes we do get, because we know it's not just going to be zip zap and they're out of there. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, maybe she's not going to get out of this, because I have literally zero reason to believe that. But like a lot of origin movies, the problem with a lot of origins is they're dull. You were able to explain her backstory in about a minute, with what the movie took about an hour to. It's like, no, you just skip over the boring stuff. Let's get to the fun part.
Well, I felt like the director or the editor or maybe a higher up felt the same way, because this film starts right before a climactic scene.
Yeah.
Basically, what could be her first kill, and then it says 8 months earlier, and then we get 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it slightly more believable. But in my head, I was like, she did all that in 8 months.
Yeah.
I can't even get on a workout regimen in 8 months. Are you kidding me? Anyway, either way, we get a flashback to get to the scene that we saw at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as the film does that, there were like people in the audience who were going, "Oh my god," because it's like it's a tired trope, and it almost makes it feel like the movie doesn't trust itself to tell a compelling story. You could start after that. The movie goes to her roots, and you see where she's at now, emotionally not so great, and then you get to see flashbacks even further to how she and her family got along. It was a
lot of time spent on flashbacks to her being sad about her family.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's just got to make sure you understand her headspace and what she's willing to do.
She's sad about her family. Yeah, I will say, talking about the movie not feeling confident about itself, I will say that it looks like it's edited with a slap chop. Like there are some longer takes and some pretty obviously faux longer takes, like digitally enhanced long takes. But any conversation is just, it moves in a very weird, like, you're never on the face of the person that's talking. And normally you would do that because you'd want the emotional reaction of the person listening, but there's not a lot of emotional reactions, period, from anybody. And so it just feels like a very haphazard way of pacing together conversations. And I don't know about you, all the needle drops for like licensed music were always very weirdly executed. The one in particular is we get a song, a pop song starts playing, and then she walks into a person's office, and then it goes lower, so it's like, oh, it's playing in the office. But then it picks back up when she leaves, so I'm like, oh, now we're going to do something, and then it immediately stops. And it's like, what was the reasoning behind any of this? Why did we have this song? It just makes everything feel kind of out of place.
And to that point, there's another scene where she is being trained by Jude Law to outmaneuver in a high-speed chase inside cars.
Yeah.
And so he's rear-ending her with a different car. And there's a pop song that kicks on right when it hits. Yeah. So it's like count to 30, and then she crashes and it turns off again. It's like the quickest transition, even though you're using other music before and then after. So like, why'd you just kind of like jimmy that in there?
Yeah, and that's indicative of a lot of the way the movie's pieced together. And I don't necessarily want to throw shade towards the editor, because what it feels like is some producers coming in and like, hey, maybe you do this. You know what I mean?
And the editing is definitely a flaw in this movie, but also just the overall story. We meet a lot of colorful characters in this spy world that is both big and small, and everyone has a relationship to one another. Because of course, in James Bond movies, he always runs into like the girl at the bar or the guy at the bar that's like, "Oh wait, it's you. What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
Explain that poorly, but you get what I'm saying. For reasons, everyone in this movie kind of knows each other, and they all have something to do with our main antagonist, but not really, but kind of, but not really. And as you kind of like start to learn more and more and more, the more confusing it gets to what each person means to one another. They don't not everyone needs to matter to everything, but it sets up that it is, and then later they're like, Burp.
No.
And it kind of just peters out, and I'm left confused by what everyone means to each other by the end of the movie, except for I know that her family's dead. I know that. And
it's very make it pretty much clear that her family's dead.
Yeah, and there's a pretty horrific thing that one character does that is glossed over in one sentence.
Yeah. And also doesn't how the logistics of how that happened are dubious at best. So with all that in mind, it's got Rotten Tomatoes. It's 48%. What would you rate it?
Yeah, no critical consensus as of yet.
Yeah.
And now we kind of do letter grades in our reviews, but for this, it's lower than that. So I'm just going to withhold doing that, just and give it out of 10. It feels like a 3 out of 10. Personally, I think it would be lower except for 2 action scenes in particular where while the editing is pretty rough throughout the movie, I thought there is a car chase scene that makes it feel like it's one long take through a city, and the editing in that is pretty good. Yeah. To a degree. And then later there's another action scene involving a bus, which is in trailers, but I'll just say it's involving a bus. And editing doesn't matter in that. It's just a really cool scene. And way Blake Lively.
Anytime an action scene happens, it's pretty cool. The 2 times that it happens.
The 2 times. And then there's like little tiny fights that happen, and it's just Blake Lively getting her ass into her. So it's like, it's hard to call that a fight. She's just getting beaten up. So it would be lower except for those 2 things were pretty badass. So I would raise it higher. So a 3 out of 10 is my score of this.
So I'll give it a letter grade, but not a number grade.
I'll give it. I'll average them.
I'll give it a C. I'll give it a C. It's which I think outside of America is better than it is in America. In America, C's not great. Although C's do get degrees. Yes, they do. So keep that in mind.
Under Harvard's logo.
I think everybody's giving it their all, which kind of makes it even more disappointing that the movie we get is disappointing. It's disappointing. It's worth pointing out that this is, like Sam said, it's based off of a series of books, and the way the film ends, it definitely feels like the producers who are the producers behind the James Bond films are looking to like maybe make a new franchise. And I don't think I found out that originally this movie was scheduled to be released on February 22nd, 2019, and then got pushed to November 22nd, 2019, and now is now. I think it's safe to say that we probably won't be getting more of this franchise.
Hey, you never know. International audiences could just be like...
They could just eat it up.
They could eat it up. It is fun to see the different locations they shoot in this movie, and there is a question in the chat right now, joining us live at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers, asking him why it's called Rhythm Section.
Oh, don't worry. The movie will tell you. And also...
It won't apply what it means. It doesn't apply what it means.
I mean, there's a lot of times where it slows down and it's like, can you hear her heartbeat? It's like, yeah.
It has to do with murdering people, but and which could have translated. I'm not going to tell people how to do their job, but it could have translated to a really cool use of percussive music and maybe pop songs or classic rock songs to help. Like hammer home the rhythm that you could use to focus and be a better spy or assassin, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. It's just there's orchestral music happening in the background, so that's it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Anyway, it's the rhythm section is breathing and focusing on your heartbeat. Yeah. To when you're shooting a gun or you're getting ready to kill somebody, and I would feel bad about, but the movie, they even do a title drop in there. So, you know what? It is what it is. We didn't enjoy the rhythm section. Let us know in the chat in the comments if you've seen it. If you've read the book, I'd be interested to know if you've read the book and if you think there's any merit in continuing this.
Yeah, no, let us know. It'd be and also patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. I've mentioned it at least a few times now. We are kicking off a couple new shows over there, and they're going to involve you guys. So if you're interested in joining us for watching movies, TV shows, chatting with us, having a good old boys and girls time. That's an awful way to describe it, but we can, you know what, have fun. At Sam Basher on Twitter, at DJ Talks Trash on Twitter, and at Only Stupid Answers on Twitter.
You got the vowels from stupid.
Bing, bang, boom. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right, bye-bye.